This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, here we are, the last day of June. I can't even believe half the year has flown by. I don't know about you, but I did finish another book, and that we will have our official launch next month in July on how to avoid 101 book publishing blunders, bloopers, and boo-boos. So we have that in play. But, as I was putting it together, because this really does make me think about a lot of the boo-boos that authors consistently do, and that's really that they don't start at the beginning. They just jump in and write. And write. And then they do the RTP, which is another big blunder. It's called rush to publish. That's with RTP, the RTP syndrome, I call it. And they rush in, and then all of a sudden, all the boo-boos come out. The oh-ohs, I should have done it this way, or I wish I had known this. So I wanted to really, it's going to just be with me today. And I want to really kind of do a refocus. This last weekend, I just came out of my, fourth annual Judith Briles Book Publishing Unplugged. We had 35 amazing authors. It's the max I let come into the program. And it's a 3-day, really intensive working with me, along with, I have Kelly Johnson with me, as well as we get into, especially on the very first day, all the gizmos and gadgets, all the things that authoring will make you soar. For example, by the time they were done, they were making videos and posting on their mobiles, which I thought was a hoot, and posting them out everywhere. And it was great fun to show them how to do that. But before you can jump in and do that, you got to go back to kind of the elementary to revisit it, to kind of, gaze into the navel of yourself as the author, as well as the navel of your book. So I just have some really questions, and I do this with all my authors. I don't care how many times you've worked with me, I want to know, do you know what your muse is? What guides you? Now, I'm in my peak. The summertime is my time. I love sunshine. I love the sound of water going, and it's always going to be in my background, in my visual sphere, so that it helps inspire me, it motivates me, and encourages me. Sometimes it's just where I can just settle in and ooze in and let my brain and my noggin just kind of gel with ideas, or let my imagination run with it, or I play with it, what if. And I would encourage you to make sure that you have that, and you keep that in play, because if you're stuck, this is what's going to help you get unstuck. So what's your muse? The next thing is really important to look at is, what's your passion? What's bringing to you the party for this book this time, if you're a repeater, or for this book the first time out? What's your passion behind it? And then the next thing is, you really need to know is, what is the picture? What's the vision that you have for you as the author for the book when it's in hand? What vision? Where do you see it going? Where do you see you going? And it's really important to have a picture of that. And I'm a huge, if you're a believer in creating what they call vision boards, that cut and paste, get out, magazines and cut them up. Are your headlines, make your own up with all the graphics that we can do today. What is that vision? Are you speaking to thousands, hundreds? Are you changing people's lives? Are you having them laugh till basically they could be incontinent? It's so silly and they're having so much fun. What's the vision? And then I think this is really essential. This is kind of where it's not the core that the passion, the vision is, but it's what's going to be the driver. And that is your commitment factor. What's your commitment? We're talking about time. How much time are you going to put into the development of your book? How much time will you dedicate to the market of it? And if you're like the typical author, they're going to say, I just want to write. Leave me alone. I just want to write. I want to work on my next book. And the reality is the writing is the minor player. It's really getting the business savvy to keep on you've got to be dedicated to learning and going through that. And then you have to tie it into your education side of it. So what's your time that you're going to be doing this? Time for marketing, time for learning new things, time for interacting, and let me tell you, time for hanging out with other authors and authors at all levels, because you'll be amazed at what you can pick up and what you can learn from newbies, as well as us old timers who have been out there. And I'll tell you, there is not a time I don't pick up an aha. And I've been publishing for over 3 decades, that I don't pick up some ahas when I listen into webinars. Webinars are a great resource. And by the way, you always want to register for a webinar. Even if you can't attend it live, if something comes along that kind of tweaks your fancy, you register for it because you can get it on the replay. And if you don't have time, then you don't have time. There'll be another one. But you got to get in line so you get reminded when the replays are played. That's a kind of our tip, one of the tips for the day. So, commitment. What's your time? What are you going to put into it? Next, how much energy do you need to pull together? Do you need more sleep? Do you need to give up on some things? And by the way, a lot of times it's important to do that. I went through an exercise, and I'll just kind of share with you what it was at the Judith Briles Unplugged event. And it's really in detail of how I do it, but it's in my little book, Snappy, Sassy, Salty, Wise Words for Authors and Writers. And I used it for years and years from the platform, speaking to groups all over the world. And it does tie in with the time. And really what's important, where do you want to put your time? So all I did is ask them, there was little pieces of paper on the table, and I asked them to write down, I wanted to pull 4 of them, what were the 4 most important things for them? What is important for them in whether it's a success quotient, whether it is for meaningful things for them. And it could be work related, it could be personal related. I didn't care. I just wanted to know what their big 4 was. And I gave them just a few seconds to write them down, because if you have to think too much about it, you know what? It may not be important. Sometimes we overclutter ourselves. So we went through the 4. And they had them. And I said, okay, I want you to look them over. And of these big 4, which of the 4 is the least important? And they, groans came out around the room, groans. And I said, which of the 4 is the least important? I want you to remove it from your list. And they had trouble doing it. Many of them had trouble. I just went over to their table. I looked down. I didn't even read what they had. I just grabbed one and pulled it off. Gasp. I wanted to get them to 3. And I said, okay, you each have 3 in front of you. Of the 3, which is the least important? Now that was a little easier. 1 more went away. And then of the 2, which is the less important? We had 1 left. And my question went out to this. How many of you spend the amount of time you want to each day supporting what this huge number 1 is? And of the 35, I had 2 people that said this is what they could dedicate, what they were, what they could and committed to and followed through with dedicating, supporting that. That's not so good. Here's what happens. My keeper here for all of you to keep in mind is, if you never say no, your yeses are worthless. We have to decline. So when you're in the author mode, when you're in the marketing mode, when you're in the publishing mode, you absolutely have to back away from a lot of this other stuff that comes in and makes noise and takes your energy and time away. And it happens with emails, it happens with phone calls, it happens with people coming to the door, it happens with a friend saying, oh my God, this is the most amazing community garage sale, let's go. And you're going to say, I just went through identifying the top 4 things in my life, and going to that garage sale didn't make it. You say no. And you have to also, here's a really critical thing to bring in your success of completion of your manuscript, of completion of a program, of whatever it is. You have to get buy-in and support from your family, because here's the truth. A lot of times people think authors just diddle. They're dabbling around. They're really not in a business. They don't even think of writing a book and publishing it and supporting it and marketing it as a business. And it is a business. It's a big business. It's $1 billion business that's actually doing quite well. So you have to really bring it into play that this is a business. So to our family members, we really have to say, this week, this is what I'm focusing on. Please bring me food and the appropriate drink. Please minimize whatever you come in your space. This is so critical for your success because they need to buy in. I mean, I've created like crime scene tape, and it says authors at work, literally keep out. Author at work, do not cross. And when I travel, like a lot of you know who've listened to me over the years, I often start a book and finish a book on cruise ships because it's water and usually sun for me. So it's a way. I have food brought to me. I'm taken care of. If I want to have entertainment, I can go out. But I am happy as a clam to work away on my balcony. And I can often do an entire draft of a book in a week when I am focused, when I'm concentrated, when I don't have that outside noise I was just talking about. So I get buy-in, and that's what I encourage you to do. So commitment, time, energy, and then lastly, what kind of money do you need? When we come back from our break, we'll talk about those kind of monies, because we could be looking at a crowdfunding program. You may have the cash. You may have investments that you can liquidate. You may, who knows where it's coming from. But what's your budget here? We'll be right back. This is AuthorU, your guide to book publishing, and I'm Judith Briles, your book shepherd.
Is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join AuthorU today through its website at AuthorU.org. Follow AuthorU on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at AuthorU, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. AuthorU, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
First impressions are everything in the world of book publishing. Whether your book is an ebook, a print version, or both, your book cover needs to pop, sizzle, and sparkle to immediately capture the attention of your audience. And your book's interior needs to be just as dynamic and reflect the professionalism your readers demand. Nick Sellinger of NZ Graphics has won numerous national and international book awards for his cover designs and interior layouts. With over 20 years of experience in graphic design, he knows what it takes to create award-winning books and the many promotional pieces that authors need, such as posters, banners, postcards, one-sheets, business cards, logos, and more. Visit ncgraphics.com and see what authors and publishers have to say about their award-winning books and how NZ Graphics can make your book the success it was meant to be. That's nzgraphics.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right. Money, 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 money. And we all need it. I mean, could you use a lot of money? Oh, that would be lovely. But that, can you also publish really on a minimal budget? Sure you can. But you got to be smart here, and you got to know where not to cut corners and where you want to support. So you need to have money for editing. And there's usually a couple of stages editing. If you are a horrendous writer, and let's face it, some people have fabulous ideas and then they kind of suck at writing. So you may need a ghostwriter. Expect to get out a checkbook and spend a lot of money, and that's what happens. I've seen ghosting run from 12 to, and I'm talking 12,000 to the biggest one I saw was 80,000. Most will not hit that higher mark. But when you think about a ghostwriter, most of them only do one or two projects at a time because they take a break. Some of them just do one project at a time. It could take a few months. It could take many, 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 many months. Basically, you are hiring them as your writer, and you're going to pay for that. That is a full-time job. They are not cheap. So you need to be aware of that. If you need help, this is a big budget item. Editing. Every author, I don't care how good a writer you are, needs an editor. Now, there is content development editing, which means that editor will be doing some really rewriting, a lot of rewriting. They're not doing a proofreading, which is punctuation and simple grammar. So they could be restructuring sentences. They could be adding some content to it, not doing the ghosting, but it's the next level right below that ghosting. That's going to cost, and you could spend easily. I mean, some will say X amount of dollars a page. Some will go on, this is my hourly rate. You're just going to have to figure out where it's going at, but get quotes on this, and you could spend several thousand dollars on content developmental editing. Then there's the punctuation proof, and depending upon the size of your book, that you'll be looking at anywhere from $500 to maybe up to $2,000, again, depending upon the book itself. And then the last one, which I call, and some people call proofing, but I call it the cold eye. And the cold eye is someone who comes in after your book is actually formally laid out as a book. They print it out as a book. They've never seen your book before, had eyes on it, which is always best to do it this way because they will see things in a new eye format. At this point, you or the editor that you have worked with, it's like the headlights in the eyes, the deer effect, that you just can't see stuff anymore. You think it's there, it's not, or you're reading into it. So that person, and we pay, we go into anywhere from $300 to max $500 when we bring in that person to do that. Right? Editing is essential, and in my opinion, you've got to have a professional cover and interior designer. Now, there are ways to shortcut that. I would not get away from the cover. I would just want someone who does cover, who's familiar with your genre, who's contemporary, who knows what's going on in the book design world. If you want to go into the interior design, certainly people like Joel Friedlander have templates that they put together that are really quite sophisticated, and you can use that. I would not be doing anything. I mean, you write your book in Word. Please do not try to go to Word. And also don't try to lay out your own book. Just so you want to see what it looks like. because when it comes back in, if you do use a book designer, there's only really two main programs that are used. One is called Quark. The other is InDesign. And unless you want to do those things, learn those things, it's the last thing in the world that I'd be looking at. So then you can put it together and handle it with that way. And you talk with them, get bids, ask to look at their books like yours. Ask them to look so you can get a good feel for what's going on. Those are going to be your costs in that area. And then from there on, let me tell you, you can go minimal. And you can start out with a print on demand, which is you're paying for one book at a time. So you're talking about a few dollars at a crack. Once you start going over multi-hundreds, you better get a bid on offset, because you'll find that your printing costs will actually drop anywhere from a third to a half per book. Once you go over 500 books, you're going to see a drop in price on printing. But you can do a book for not a lot of money. If you're a great writer, your editing is going to be nominal on that. If you need help, you're going to be spending much more money on the editing, getting it ready to go to a design format. So how much money do you need? You need to put together that budget and put it together. Now, with that said, let's say that we've got it all together. One of the things that I like my authors to do is really a strategic overview of what their book is. And within that is what's called a SWOT analysis. And some of you who are familiar with business are familiar with SWOTs. That's where you look for the strength, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And a lot of people just don't think about this. What are my strengths? Okay, so let's do and how a SWOT analysis is often laid out. It's like on a fourplex, a four square of a grid with an S at one square at the upper left and the W, the upper right, and the lower left is the O, and the lower right would be the T. All right. So with creating your turn, if you're going to do it right now. And sometimes you can do this yourself, but then I think it's always good to have other people's players in that. And you'll find sometimes that a strength could be a weakness. All right. Now, how could that be? Well, let's say that you're really organized. You're so good at organizing and doing things. It could actually be a weakness because you overorganize, you overthink, you overdo it instead of just getting to it. Do you see what I mean? So what are your strengths? Are you imaginative? Are you creative? Are you get stuff done? Are you someone who is not confined by what other people think? And you think, forget about thinking out of the box. Do you just toss the box away and redefine whatever your box is that you're going to stand on, jump through? What are your strengths as an author? What are your strengths as an expert? Now I'm talking about and this is for fiction and nonfiction. I know a lot of you think, but I'm a fiction writer. Well, most fiction people I know have to do a lot of research. You end up deep diving into locations, into character development, into nuances that your characters carry within you. You know a lot. You know a lot, and you have expertise in it. You just don't think about it. For nonfiction, it's much easier. And experts always are continuing learning, by the way. It's not mean that you have a time clock stopping, but what is your expertise? Okay, so if I was to describe myself, and we always work for pitching for that, but I would say I'm Dr. Judith Briles, and I am a book publishing and market strategy expert, showing authors how to create and develop books they never regret. What is your expertise in that? And then what other areas do you have strengths in? And they could be a variety. If you feel stuck, ask someone who knows you well. All right, then what about weaknesses? As I said, weaknesses can be the same as some strengths on that. A weakness, by the way, could be you're a perfectionist. Perfectionism is often the enemy of getting things done. And one of the things we authors have to understand when we look at opportunities is if you've got an idea that there's a window out there, but if you are so stuck on making it perfect, if you're so methodical and going through checking everything out, going back and rechecking, your opportunity window may be closing, and that's always scary. So what's your weaknesses? And get those all out. And you have to be honest with yourself, and it could be that you have the squirrel factor. Like anything that comes along, you're distracted and you're off and running again. What are your opportunities? So what's going on in the marketplace that opens up in opportunities? And then lastly, you got to look at what are the threats, and that's where you need to know what the competition is. Also, you have to be tuned into what's going on economically and maybe environmentally. And in some cases, for some of you, you need to even be tuned on what's going on politically. Could that be a factor? So doing your own personal SWOT analysis, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And what are your threats? That all those can turn to your advantage by recognizing and then running with them. So staying away from your weaknesses, looking at the opportunities, knowing what those threats are. Can you turn them into opportunities? And many, many times you can. All right, we're going to take another quick segue break. I'm going to be back, and we're going to be jumping into some other goodies to take you to the next step to your authoring success.
Is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Want to publish like a pro today? Well, then take a look at Ingram Spark, the only publishing platform that offers print and ebook services through a single source. Upload, edit, and manage titles all in one place. Take more control of printing costs with print on demand, and reach even more readers through one of the world's most extensive distribution networks. Built by independent publishers for independent publishers, Ingram Spark has everything you need to maximize your book's potential: color printing, ebook distribution, print on demand, global reach, and more. Start publishing with Ingram Spark today and see just how far your titles will go tomorrow. That's ingramspark.com.
Many of us have dreamed of writing a book.
Some of us even have.
Then the hard work starts.
You'll need an editor.
Who will design the cover or typeset the pages?
Who will format the ebook?
If you're a business owner, consultant, or coach with a serious message and expertise to share, the team of experts at 1106 Design can guide you through the maze.
They've helped more than 1,000 authors create top-quality books and avoid the not-so-reputable self-publishing companies.
Learn more at 1106design.com.
Then call Michelle at 602-866-3226. 1106 Design.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Oh, we're back. I have to tell you that we did a fabulous webinar. And I had the faculty from the Publishing at Sea cruise that we're doing in January. And I would love to have you mosey over to the publishingatsea.com website and just take a look at what we're doing in January. I mean, who wouldn't want to be in the Caribbean in January? And what we're doing is we have to have 2 weeks, one for the newbie and aspiring author and the other one for the more advanced, the developing, achieving author. And some people actually, because they're so distinct programs, they do what we call a back-to-back and stay there for both. But I would encourage you to take a look at what we have, and we will be posting, as you listen to this, we will have up on the website the posting of the webinar that we just did. The whole faculty shared in 30 tips, hot tips for a variety of things. Some were gizmos and gadgets, some were marketing strategies, some were, I did the last 31 one, which was what happens if your book's been stolen and what you can do with book piracy. But there was a whole bunch of really great clip tips. And I would encourage you to take the time to listen to that webinar and take them and run away with them. And if you're interested in coming on the cruise, certainly look at the details and call me and get back to that. All the details are on the website on how to do that. All right, so I was talking about completing the SWOT analysis, about looking at your vision, your passion, your commitment. And here's what happens when you take that time to do the pre-work. This is pre-work. And it's smart to do it with every project you do. Every book project, every time, let's go back and regroup, because each one has its own pedigree, own type of DNA that puts together. So we do that. And then I think it's a good idea to take a look at, okay, so what kind of money I can make, because I still have authors, even though a lot of people don't realize in this year, 2016, over half of all books published today will be from the small press, independent, self-published market. Over half. Now, a lot of authors are still, but I really want New York to publish me. And, I'll support you in that journey, but I really want to ask you, why do you want New York to do it? Because clearly, people don't pick up a book and say, oh, this is another fine book by Random House. No, they pick up a book because, one, they know the author and they're a super fan of the author. And like, there's a few authors that I'm a super fan of. Anything they have, I buy. You may all be what's called a super reader. You just buy anything in the genre. You may love romance. You may love mystery. You may love sci-fi. You may be into anything in health. It makes you a super reader of that. But what we're talking about here is that if you want to go to New York, why do you want to? Now, you may be under the belief, and I'm going to tell you it's an illusion today, that they will take care of you. And when I first started publishing in the 80s, I was taken care of. I was a kept author. It was lovely. It's not the way they do it today. And that New York expects you to bring to the party all the marketing moxie that's going to move this book, that it's going to drive people to the bookstores or to drive them to Amazon to buy your book. That's what they expect you to do. And if you get any advance out of them, and advances have certainly been reduced, if you get any advance out of them, their expectation is you take that money and you're going to hire the people that will make this work. Or if you know how to do it, go for it. But it's not the way it used to be. So, and I should say also, there's a shorter window of whether they're going to come and support you, because if they do see your book get some traction and starts moving, they actually will come in probably with some support behind it. Maybe give it a little push, maybe get some media out on it or making a suggestion for that. But otherwise, you're on your own, which can make it lonely. Now, you need to understand also the dollars and cents of all this. If you have, let's say, a typical trade paperback, let's just talk the softback, is going to sell for anywhere from probably, it could be as low as $12.95. It could go up to maybe $19.95. Most of them are going to be kind of in that range. Let's go in the middle way and say your book's around $15. That means the royalty you're going to get is around 7 to 9%. So for every book you sell, you're talking about getting anywhere from maybe 50 cents to 65 cents a book. That's not a lot of money. Here's the next thing, wake-up call. How many books are typically sold with a New York publisher? Well, here's the shock. Within the first couple of years, and the book is probably over by then, but within the first couple of years, you're talking maybe 5,000 copies. If you multiply our 65 cents times 5,000, we're talking around, $3,500. That's not very much money. All right, so what says you that maybe you're going to join the majority that seem to be publishing on their own, and you decide to do it, but you still, you want to in the bookstore, capable of the bookstore, or you can use primarily Amazon, which is what most of us are going to do. What's that mean? You're going to create the book, you're going to produce it, and you're going to sell it out with a discount rate of around 55%. That means for every buck you bring in, that wholesaler, and Amazon is an online bookstore, and they're going to take 55%. You're going to get 45%. So for every dollar, you'll get what? 45 cents. All right, that's all you're going to get. So let's say that let's just play with this number. Let's say that 5,000 books get sold. If you had a $15 book, your cost to produce it, and I will tell you, when I am laying out my book, when I'm planning for editing and that kind of thing, I budget in personally anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000. And then I have my printing cost of that. If you're going to do print on demand, it's going to be a little bit more per unit than what I'm going to quote here. But if you are going into what we call an offset printing run, it will be a lot less. So if I'm going to print, let's say I print 5,000 books, and I'm not going to recommend you rush off and do this at this time. You can go back to what we call reprinting. But let's say you do this and you print 1,000 books at a time. All right, your costs will be a lot higher. It's gonna run anywhere from $2.50 to $3 a book for around a 250-page book. And let's say I have my cover design and all that in, and roughly I'm going to have costs of around $6,000. I could have anywhere from $6,000 with using my numbers. So that means my profit will only come in the area for 1,000 books would come in the area of around, say, $2,500. Which is better than what you'd make with New York. Because if I was looking at New York for 1,000 books, I'm not making much at all. I'm not, I am lucky to make $1,000. So if I did this with the wholesale and let's just multiply this out. Let's say over the life, I do 5,000 and I get my cost of my book below $2, I'm going to be looking at around $18,000 to $20,000 in profit versus the $3,500 I would make as a royalty paying author. All right, now let's go to option number 3. Option number 3 would be, well, yeah, I want it available online. So definitely I'm going to play with Amazon, which I would encourage all of you to do. Have it available on BNN, have it on Amazon, other sources. I want you to create an ebook, and that's print and an and also I want you to really strongly consider an audiobook. We've had Richard Riemann on a couple of times on the show, and I would go back and scroll and look at the shows that we've done. The most recent one was just about 2 months ago, and look at audiobooks will be in the title. But listen in on that, because you can spend several $1,000s to create an audiobook, or you can do it for nothing. So how do you do that? Well, you're going to go into royalty splits with the narrator and all that, but Richard shows you how and tells you how to do it. So listen in on that. If you want to compete with the big boys, which is New York, you want to have an ebook, you want to have a P-book, you want to have an A-book. Ebook, print book, audiobook. All right, so let's say that I decide I'm going to do this baby on my own, and I'm going to figure out how to sell them directly, like off my website, or my way was with my mouth. And I spoke to groups all over the world, primarily within the United States. But I sold 95% of my books that way through the speaking arena. And what I was able to do was retain most of the money. So what happens if you go to option number 3? Well, I'm telling you that you sell 5,000 books, which I sold many times over 5,000 books, that all of a sudden you're looking at, for a trade paper, you're looking at maybe $60,000 to $70,000 net profit. We're going to be right back. This is Judith Briles. It's AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd. If you want to create a book with no regrets, give her a call today. 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled Briles. Follow Judith on Twitter at MyBookShepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
One of the most important decisions you will ever make is your choice for printing your book. You are choosing a company which will be responsible for guiding you through the process and printing your book at a level of quality and detail that embraces your personal and creative needs. You want to choose a company that when your book finally arrives, you are delighted and ready to move on to the next level, and one that is customer focused. Choose King Printing Company and Addy Books to be that company that brings you to the next level. Go to kingprinting.com or call 1-458-2345 and ask for Tom Campbell.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All righty, so I left you kind of hanging there as I was just saying you can make this kind of money. Now, I'm talking about in that, that kind of $15 range. And I will tell you, when I publish my books, I am always on the higher end for a trade paper, and I rarely go under $18.95 for a trade paper. And a lot of times I just round it to 20, because when I am out on the road, it's so much easier for people to give me a $20 bill, which, I have always, and I have never shied away from not reporting. I've always reported all the income and brought it in, because we actually have kept track since 1987 of my revenues from speaking, from book sales, from my royalties from New York, as well as from what they call back to the room, from sponsorships that I've had. I've always kept detailed track of that. And I would encourage you, one of the things as someone in this process, that make sure that you really do go down and nail down and understand, embrace, celebrate that this is a business. So you have separate bank accounts, you have separate tax ID numbers. I hope that you go into your respective states, wherever you are, and you file your publishing company. And remember, I've said this many, many times, but I'll repeat it here, is the publishing company should not be your name. If you have a business name, a corporate name, come up with something that make it sounds like a publishing company, but cannot be directly saying, oh yeah, this person's self-publishing. And you get around that because some people say we don't review self-publish, we don't distribute self-publish, and I'm not self-published. I am published by a independent press that specializes in my genre. And let me tell you, you sidestep the whole issue there. But you have to make it look like, so you have it filed with the state, so you're legitimate. And for some of you, you may be up for something where you're going to eventually move into trademarking a name and nailing it down that way. And that could be very worthwhile. I mean, I own the trademark for the Book Shepherd. We also own the trademark for AuthorU. And I've got a couple more that I'm going to go after. And I just did a program with the person who was the regional director for the USPTO, the United States Patent and Trade Office. And I'm based in Denver, Colorado. They have an office down here, and I am going to go down there and get some help. I am actually not going to be using, those of you in the legal profession will probably gulp here, but I'm not going to be using an attorney and spending a couple of $1,000s to do it when I know it can be done for a few $100s, and I've got the guides there to help me. So how cool is that? And when you can lock in that trademark, if it's something that buzz, there's a buzz factor that you created, maybe a saying that you're known for, why not see if you can grab it? Now, let me make a suggestion here. How do you find out if it's available? And do it maybe on the sly, incognito. A great resource that I want you all to know about is called Knowem. And that is spelled Knowem. So K is in kangaroo, N is in nickel, O is in Oscar, W is in Waldorf, E is in elephant, M as in Mary. Knowem, KNOWEM.com. Go to it. Now, here's what's very cool about Knowem. You're incognito. And you can put in name. Let's say you're looking for websites. I love to use it for websites. I don't like to go to GoDaddy and explore anything, because if the GoDaddy robots see that someone's poking around at a name, those little suckers go and grab it, and all of a sudden now you have to buy it at a higher price. So Knowem allows you to see if something is available. And here's what else. It's like 3 things pop up. And within seconds, it searches 500 databases, including the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So first of all, it goes for the domain. Is the domain you're looking for available? And if the .com's taken, it will let you know is the .net, the .us, the .org, there's a whole bunch of dots available. And you make that decision. And then you can start tweaking. Maybe it's taken, maybe there's a variation. And I've always said, I believe that the author is the brand. I want you to go with the branding of your name. Your name. I want you to create a tagline that describes you. For my tagline on my website, creating practical publishing advice, that you want to see, practical publishing guidance and advice. What is it that fits you, your expertise? Get that underneath your name. Your name, big, 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 big. If your name is taken, the .com is taken, just add your name, author.com. You can certainly go after .org, .net if you choose to, and it may make sense. And also consider getting misspellings, because some people spell Johnson, Johnsson, or SEN. Some people spell Smith, SMITH, the very simple one, and there's SMYTHE. You have to think of people think differently. Plan on misspellings for that. Now, the next thing that you'll see, all these variations, and then this lovely thing opens up. Hey, your name is also available on Tumblr, Flickr, Blogger, all these other variables. And then you can just say, okay, because what in your brand, your name is the brand, your products of the brand. And I also think you should get your book title.com if you can. But you've got all these things available. You do these redirects when you have multiples, just redirect to the master site. But then you'll know what other social media platforms are available using your name. Identify those. And then lastly, the trademark office will say whether or not the trademark is available. All on Knowem in one page within seconds. How cool is that? I think it's very cool. So add that tool to your bag of tricks and get used to using it all the time, because we do in our offices and our clients do. All right. The other thing I want you to do before we do a wrap up here is that when you go into the book business, that it's important to understand what break even is. So I would put down, if you buy 100 copies, let's say you do a POD and you get 100 copies, all right? What was the cost of designing your cover? What was the cost of any editing? What was the cost of this full thing of the printing run? What's the cost of shipping it to you? What's the cost of any classes you took or any consultants you put in place? I want you to really identify how much it costs to produce this baby. All right? Now, divided by how many books you have. How many do you have to sell to recover what your retail is? What you're asking. How many? Now, I have my books. I use Ingram Spark. I put them up there because I want it available to independent bookstores to order the book. But But I do an offset printing run. I usually print a minimum of 1,000 books, so I know very quickly whether my book is going to be full color. All my books now are full color throughout the AuthorU mini guide series, and the one I mentioned as we started the show, which I encourage all of you to get, up on Amazon, How to Avoid 101 Book Publishing Blunders, Bloopers, and Boo-Boos, but that is full color throughout. It is illustrated, almost some variation on every page and in color. They cost more money. So my print run for the 1,000 books ran, and I had bids, I put out for 3 to 5 bids. I had bids that ran around $3,000 up to $7,000 to get these 1,000 books. That ran for me, let's just use the lower amount, the $3,000. So I know my book cost was $3,000. So the book sells for $24.95, or let's say $25. So how many books, if I'm going to sell it on Amazon, let's use Amazon, who's going to take a 55% discount. So that means that they're going to pay me about $11 per book. That tells me to recover my printing costs, I've got to sell 300 books. Do you see why you need to do this? You need to understand. Now, I still have my editing cost, and I have my cover cost. And in this case, the editing cost for this book ran about $1,000, and my cover and then the layout and design. All right, so I had another $2,500 that came into here. So I am roughly looking at, I need to sell 500, or 1/2 of my first print run, to cover my costs. Now, one of them will be recurring. What's that? Printing. The others are in place. I don't have to redo this again. All right, so then that I know that I have 500 free that'll do it. If I sell it directly to you and I'm not doing the Amazon split, I, of course, have to sell less. But understanding that will make such a huge difference in making you successful, which is always my primary goal. I want you to be a content but very successful author. But you've got to do that by knowing what your strengths, what your weaknesses, what the opportunities, what the threats are. You need to know what the costs of doing this and putting it together. You need to understand your time, the energy you need to do. And when you bring that, you bring the picture forward, and you do it by being smart. I look forward to being with you next week. Happy writing, happy summer, enjoy the 4th.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week, a variety